will be good. Yes.
Yeah. Meeting is being recorded. Okay. Okay. So America has hundreds of thousands of neglected apartment buildings. And why not retrofit them so they're more easily creating and fostering community, and so participants can rediscover food production and composting, make the fullest use of resources by sharing among members, and move to energy self-reliance, including for transportation. So here's an example of the sales flyer for the Kenneth Allen Apartments. This apartment complex came up for sale in 2022, I believe. And we live right next door. So can you see my arrow here?
I can. And would you say who you are? So.
Oh, yes, yes. So welcome to this presentation. My name is Ole Ersson, and my wife, Maitri. Maitri, can you join us here for a second?
There she is.
We started Kailash Eco Village. We're on our 18th year now. So in December, we had our 17th anniversary. So I'm going to tell you the story of Kailash Eco Village, which has been going for quite a while and has been kind of our testing grounds. And then we've started a new project called Annapurna Eco Village, which you see here. It was the former Kenneth Allen Apartments. We've taken over management of this property now, and we're turning it into another Eco Village. And Kailash has been sort of the leading example and has shown us what we need to do to make this happen in a most expeditious manner. So the presentation I'm going to give go ahead.
Use your cursor to show where Kailash is in relation to Annapurna.
Yeah, so you see this is the old Kenneth Allen Apartments. This is now Annapurna Eco Village. And down here in the center bottom of the screen is Kailash Eco Village. And that's the roof there, and there's a tree house here that was under construction.
All right. Very good.
That time. So we're adjacent properties, which makes it really convenient for us to manage this property because we live right there. Yeah. So anyway, the idea is, so this company that created this sales flyer is it's a broker that focuses on multifamily properties. And so they create this prospectus that describes the property and, what's going on with it, et cetera, and what are the potential improvements that can be made and so forth. And so this was the front page of their prospectus for the Kenneth Allen Apartments. So this is a typical multifamily apartment sale. When we started Kailash 17 years ago, we actually didn't have something as detailed as this. The property was offered by another broker. But anyway, you do your research and you find out what's going on with the property. Would it be suitable for what you're envisioning? So the idea being that
do you have trouble talking to brokers? I mean, are they willing to talk with you as an individual?
They're delighted to talk with anybody who they think they can sell to. They want to make a sale, and so they'll entertain any offers and any ideas. They're not attached to any particular outcome for a property.
Okay. Great.
So anyway, there are hundreds of thousands of apartment buildings in the country, and the turnover is probably, I don't know, maybe 10% per year are sold. So there's a large number of properties that could become more than just apartment buildings. They could become new communities where we restore community and we restore ecological sustainability. So now let's move into the story of Kailash Eco Village, which we started 17 years ago. So what's unique about the Kailash Eco Village model? Well, we're a rental model. So for people to join our community, very minimal capital is required, basically first and last month, and you can move in. Unlike co-housing, which is another very popular model for intentional communities, the people who are interested in joining co-housing using the condominium model have to have a lot of money or good credit because, they're basically buying their unit. And to give an example of how much capital is needed, we worked with the folks who started Columbia Eco Village across town. And that was about the same time that we started ours. Their studio apartments were $160,000 at that time, and they're probably priced that now. So consider 320,000. How many people can afford a $320,000 mortgage? Most of the people who live at Kailash would not be able to afford that. We have a few people who are fairly well-to-do, but most of our residents are lower income and would be really hard pressed to make a sale, to make a purchase of a property like that. So it's inexpensive. To live here, it's much less than a co-housing mortgage. Plus, you have no homeowners association fees. The homeowners association fees are typically $200-300 minimum for co-housing communities. And then you have your co-housing mortgage, and so it's expensive and it's out of reach for most people. So it's easy to try out an intentional community using this model, and that's why it has so much more potential than co-housing does. Co-housing is a great model, don't get me wrong, but it's not accessible to the lower income folks that live here. So anyway, here are a couple of photos.
Age range. What's the age range?
The age range at Kailash is from, gosh, we have kids that are 1 or 2 years old, up to 76 is our oldest. So, and we have a lot of retirees here, and we have a lot of singles or couples. We're mostly 1-bedroom units, so we're not as amenable to families as many housing developments are. And that's actually one of the reasons we were so attracted to Annapurna, because it has an equal number of 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units, which are more suitable for families with a couple of kids or several kids. Anyway, it's easy to try out community. So in these slides, you'll see some photos of Kailash. So this is the balcony overlooking our first community garden area and a picnic area. And this was during the snowstorm. So this gives you an approximate idea of what the property is like. It's 1.75 acres or 0.7 hectare site. It's close in to Portland. So that's Portland in the upper right corner here. You can see Portland City Center. We're located near 3 bus lines. We're 6 kilometers or 4 miles or so from the Portland City Center. We've got great bicycle access in East Portland. The east side of the Willamette River is fairly flat and is very, very bicycle accessible. Our community currently has about 55 residents. So here's an aerial view of the Kailash building, or the property footprint, and then this is the main building in the center. We also incorporate a 1926 house that's been remodeled for 2 units. And right here is a little tiny house there. And this photo was taken after we did our street painting, a street intersection painting. You can see at the bottom of the photo.
Nice.
So the living space consists of 34 residential units, 30 of which are 1-bedroom units. We're in 3 attached buildings, 3 buildings that are attached. That's the big building, built in 1959. And then there's this 2-unit passive house remodel, single family property next door. It's adjacent to us. And then right here in the driveway on the right side of Amrita House, we now have a tiny house there.
Okay, I must say something. I will not be joining around just before 2 o'clock because I have an interview going on. So thank you so much for letting us present this. Thank you.
Oh, glad to have you when we can.
The interview usually is like an hour.
Okay. Yeah. So Maitri's taking off right now.
Okay.
So community areas, we have a lot of community areas. So we have a community room with the kitchen, library, and media center. And here's a photo of that, one of our events. We have an attached guest room next to it. So because they're one bedroom units, you don't have a lot of space for out of town guests. So when you have a guest, you would simply reserve the guest room and your guest, has their own unit. That's really convenient. So this follows the co-housing model. Typically they have a common house or a common unit, and they have guest quarters, usually a unit or two, depending on the size of the community. So we've adopted many of the ideas that co-housing developments have, but we're just using a rental model. We also have laundry and mail rooms on site. And this is our latest community gathering place here. We have this beautiful tree house where it's big enough for, fairly substantial crowd. We could probably put 50 people in this if we needed to get the whole community together.
How long do people stay when they live there? How long do people stay? Is it a lot of turnover, or do people move in and stay?
We typically have 2 or 3 units turnover a year, which is really very low for apartment complexes. Our property manager, Caleb, who's our son-in-law, said national statistics show that multifamily properties typically have about 40% turnover per year. So we're exceptionally low for multifamily properties. And in addition, we have a 700-person vacancy notification list. People who have expressed interest in living in Kailash or Annapurna now. We use a list for both. So our turnover is fairly low because people like living here. One guy has been here 35 years. Now, that was way before we came. But he's still here and he has no plans to leave. And most of our folks have been here, a dozen years or so, like it and have no plans to move on. But we have a small number of turnover. So some of our community amenities include covered bike parking. You'll see that here in this upper photo. It's these 3 little shed areas where it's covered bike parking. We also have garden tools, and we have a solar shower and some other amenities there. We have multiple outdoor and indoor gathering spaces. So the treehouse is one of our outdoor gathering spaces. Here was a version of the treehouse before it had its roof on it. So gardens and food production has been one of our focuses here, particularly food production. We have a community orchard with some 50 fruit trees. We have community vineyards and berry patches. We have 41 individual garden plots. That's kind of modeled after a typical city community garden program where you rent a plot year by year, and you can do pretty much grow whatever you want to grow on it. You're not usually allowed to grow trees or something that will last longer than a year. But it's a great way for people who don't have land, like apartment dwellers, to avail themselves of land dedicated to gardening that's usually sponsored by a city. And then we have large communally gardened areas. So this area where the folks here in the picture are standing, this is one of our main group gardens area. We have a group garden team that decides what they want to grow in this space. They have weekly work parties every Sunday from 9 to noon. Typically, you put in 40 hours for a share over the year. You can buy half shares if you like. And we have a professional gardener. Actually, he's a farmer gardener. He has a farm nearby who lives with us, and he's one of the leaders of that program and teaches new gardeners. So here was our cucurbit harvest in 2012. Here's a view of our front yard. So we have a big circular garden in front of the main building. This is the passive house next to it, but these are some of the projects and the names of some of the areas in our property. For example, on the street, we have a bulletin board, and this didn't mention it, but this is where we had our intersection painting right there. We have a wood chip depot. Since we use so many wood chips in our gardening, all the pathways are created from wood chips. We get these wood chips free from local arborists who chip their trees, and they need a place to dispose of them. So it's a great source of fertility and material to create pathways and compost. Prior to when we did the intersection painting right here, one of the neighbors would not agree to let us paint the intersection. You have to get all of the property owners to agree. And she was never on board with our project. So we did a driveway mural. Eventually she moved out, and of course the whoever moved in was happy to see an intersection repair. So finally we did that project. But we have bulletin board there. This is our big circular garden. We have rain and wildlife gardens here. We have a well with a living roof. So these are some of our, this is what kind of what it looks like here. We have a food forest. We have beehives to assist with pollination. Composting is a big part of our gardening project. When you grow a lot of food, you have a lot of food scraps and then plants that when the food crops are done, you have the plant left over that you want to compost and turn into fertility. So this is a view of our kitchen compost area right here. So it's 11 bins, each is about 2 cubic yards. They're created with dry stack concrete blocks, which is a very, very flexible way to create bins inexpensively that are durable and rat proof. And then when you want to empty the bins, you just deconstruct so you can unstack the blocks. So if you're emptying this bin right here, you just deconstruct the blocks in front of it and you can step right into the bin. It makes it very, very easy. And even though the bins are open to the sky, we don't have any rats because it's too exposed. So when we first started our composting project, we used pallet bins, and you can actually see the old bins in the background next to the Group Gardens greenhouse here. So those were old compost bins there that were made out of discarded pallets, which are an inexpensive and easy way to form compost bins. The problem with that is it's very, very hard to rat-proof them. And we were attracting all the rats in the neighborhood. So we abandoned that idea and tried this new process out. Plus, the wooden pallets tend to rot in a year or two in a composting environment. So you have to replace them all the time. So we tried this new method, and it's worked marvelously. So we don't have a rat problem. It's very durable. It's so suitable. And the capacity of this arrangement here is sufficient for our community of 55 residents. It takes us about 7 months to go a full round and fill up all of the bins. And then by 7 months, you're back to the first one and the compost is ready. So you empty it and then start refilling it. So that's worked really, really well. And kitchen compost and many types of compost are very high in nitrogen. So they need some kind of carbon material to balance that. That's how wood chips are very, very useful for that.
So wood chips are your carbon?
Wood chips are our carbon source. So we have wildlife habitat, including rain gardens and extensive use of native plants. We have butterfly gardens, bird and bat houses, and even amphibian and reptile habitat. So we're not just doing food production, but we have areas dedicated to native plants and ornamental plants too.
Have you thought of doing a Miyawaki forest?
A what?
A Miyawaki forest?
I'm not sure what that is. A Miyawaki forest?
Miyawaki is a method of creating a forest.
I've never heard of that. No.
And they're in small spaces. 6 parking places is big enough. And you plant original plants, which you're already sort of doing. And all of the plants in the forest are planted at the same time. They are sort of taken care of for 3 years, and then it becomes wild. You don't have to do anything with it, and it brings back all the bugs and birds and all of that too. And you get shade, and there's a cooling impact.
Wow, I mean, that's a cool idea. You'll have to send me a link so I can look
I will.
And study that idea.
Yeah.
So we're also into energy production. We have about 59 kilowatts of photovoltaic panels. That's about enough for half to 2/3 of the energy we use by the 55 persons who live here. And it should probably be sufficient as we remodel and weatherize the units. So right now we have electric resistance heating, which supplies heat for all the units. And that's very inefficient compared with heat pumps.
Yeah.
So going to heat pumps and remodeling the units with better insulation, creating a better thermal envelope, we figure the amount of power we produce will actually be sufficient to meet all our needs on site. Now that includes also two electric vehicles. So we provide all the power on site for the electric vehicles, which is really, really cool too. So energy efficient remodeling, on-site energy production using solar power. One of our residents in our new development, Annapurna, is researching small vertical access windmills, which we're quite interested in exploring. So he's
they look like tulips.
Researching some grant. They turn around like that instead of like that. They go around, and they don't make so much noise. They don't have such a huge visual footprint, and you can put multiple of these small windmills on the rooftop, and it doesn't have such a huge visual impact. So community allows you to share all kinds of tools, magazines, books, media, but mainly cars. Cars are, we have a car share program, a two electric vehicle car share program. So folks can check out a car hour by hour, even less than an hour. You can rent it for 15 minutes if you want. Or you can take it for the weekend and you pay $40 a day. So it's reasonably priced. We also do a lot of recycling here. We try and get people to reduce their consumption of new items and reuse if possible. But hey, eventually everybody has recycling that you need to deal with.
Yeah.
Some of the other projects that we've worked on, we recycle all the rainwater that lands on the property on site. So if you look here, there's this yellow line, that is the edge of the roof. And we keep all the water in a pipe at this height. And then it only comes down right here on the right side into our rain gardens. I can't remember when this photo was taken, but wow. It's amazing looking at the old photos because all the trees and plants are so much bigger now. Anyway, we retain all the water from the roof and the driveway on site, and that recharges the aquifer that's underneath us. When we started the project, all of the water from impermeable surfaces like the roof and the driveway went into the sanitary sewer, which is a sanitarian's nightmare because it dilutes all of the sewage and makes you have to process several times as much sewage water to be cleaned. So let's keep going. Recycling projects, we recycle just about everything that's possible to recycle, including packing peanuts, and everybody who's here composts their food scraps. So this is an example. This slide shows things that we're recycling. We do the usual things that Portland does, plus a whole bunch of other things. We also have a free area for reusable goods, and we have a food sharing table or area. We also feel that interfacing with the neighborhood is really important. So being good neighbors is always important. So we have this street side bulletin board. People can post their own notices here. It also has a page that you can scan with your phone, takes them to our website so they can see what we're about. And then next to that in front is the street painting that we did several years back. It's called an intersection repair, sponsored by the city repair program. So depaving and intersection repair are two organizations that we've worked with that have really made a big difference all over the city of Portland in making it more livable. So artistic endeavors are also important. We have stained glass, ceramics, other sculptures. We have a tea house with a living roof. We have rainwater and kinetic sculpture. So here's an example. Let's see if I can turn this on. Yeah, so this is our kinetic rainwater sculpture here. So all the water from the north side of the roof is channeled into this rain garden here. And you can see we have 3 water wheels. These actually generate a small amount of electricity. It's not very much, but it's mainly just a visual feature.
Right. That's lovely.
So we're pushing the envelope in nutrient recycling and composting. We do veganic gardening here, so we don't allow any slaughterhouse byproducts on site. That's part of our yoga orientation. But we're permitted by the city of Portland and the state of Oregon to recycle our excreta from as many residents who want to participate in this program. So we save a ton of urine, which we sanitize and then use to fertilize our gardens. And we even do human manure composting, which is really pushing the envelope because not many people are doing that. But we are fully permitted, and it's been a very, very successful project.
So did you have trouble getting those permits?
No, we didn't. Actually, we're very lucky to live in Portland, which has so many progressive policies at the city level. So we went through a committee to get approval, and they were very enthusiastic. They, of course, ask a lot of questions and make sure that you're doing everything right, because they don't want to create a public health nuisance or any kind of hazards. But when we explained how we were planning to handle everything and showed that the techniques have been proven in other places all over the world, they were happy to give us a permit for that.
Very good.
Pushing the envelope with depaving. So we've already depaved 16 parking spaces. The first depave project back in 2010 was for the circular garden. You saw a picture of the circular garden earlier. And then we did an additional, that was 12 spaces. We did an additional 4 spaces in front of some other units. I mentioned here, the ultimate goal is the elimination of all on-site car parking except for shared and electric vehicles. We put that on hold now because with the new property, we have so much more parking space there. But I think eventually, and this depends community to community, some people are really attached to their cars. We're more on the side of car sharing and reducing parking. So that, you know, some communities would have no interest in depaving their areas, and it totally depends on the personality of the community.
Well, you can do permeable asphalt, so that makes them, at least the water will go through them instead of sitting on the top. So that's an improvement if you need to have parking.
Yes, that could be considered an improvement. Now, in our case, we catch all the water that lands on the parking spaces anyway, and then channel it to our swales where it actually enters the aquifer. So we're doing something kind of equivalent to that. So we have these two electric vehicles. This is a Bolt here and a Leaf here. And we have 2 chargers that are available to the public. So this is kind of our little car sharing and public interface for electric vehicle chargers. And then you can see here's the wood chip depot. So when arborists want to bring us free wood chips, they simply back their truck here. This is the street right here. They simply back their truck here and dump it. And then it makes it easy for them to get rid of the wood chips that they don't want. And then we can use those for our on-site projects. So our carbon footprint is quite a bit lower than your usual apartment complex where everybody has their own everything. Here we're able to share so many things. Again, this would depend on the personality of the community, but for us, we've embraced many vegan practices, which tend to be lower in the carbon footprint department. People often ask us about community governance. So Kailash Eco Village is neither a co-op nor co-housing. So it's a privately owned property. So the final land use decision making rests with the owners. But we try and turn over as much decision making about the projects that are going on here as is possible. So we have a group gardens project where they basically are given a certain amount of land to deal with, and it's totally under their control. They decide what they want to grow. They decide how they want to manage shares and everything. So it's worked out very, very well. In this sense, it's kind of a sociocratic model.
How does money flow in this? Because I mean, it costs money to put stuff in the garden. You've got to buy seeds and tools and that sort of thing. So where does that come from?
Right. Yeah. So the individual plot gardens, which are similar to a city community garden, the plot owners or the plot users pay a $20 per year fee to pay for their use of the land and the water. And group gardens, they're given the land for free because it's a really community. We feel it's a very important community building part of the community or activity, but they do charge, I think, $20 per share. Now, the cool thing is the farmer who helps run the program sells surplus produce at his weekly farmer's market to the tune of $5,000 to $10,000 a year. And that comes in to the group gardens program as kind of a profit sharing. So at the end of the season, you put in $20 at the beginning of the season. At the end of the season, you get $400 back. Of course, you put in 40 hours of labor. So you're getting about $10 an hour for your labor if you look at it that way. But so it allows us to produce a lot of food for our own use, plus to sell a moderate surplus.
Nice. Very nice.
So future projects, we've got a bunch of ideas that we'd like to do. So here, this is Mark Lakeman that drew this. I believe you're familiar with him. Yeah, so he's a great designer, and we asked him to take a look at the building and design a makeover to make it look more like an Asian temple from what it looked like originally was like a cheap hotel.
Yeah.
So he's designed this beautiful project. We have installed the cupola. We haven't installed the spires yet, or a lot of the things that are on this, but this is kind of a vision for what the building could look like in the future. Some of our other projects currently, not everybody who lives here uses our eco-sanitation and compost toilets. Eventually, we'd like to increase that to as much as universal as possible. Our goal eventually, energy-wise, is net zero. We want to generate all the power that we use on site. We've got some spaces that we could remodel and maybe explore community governance models in further detail. Okay, so that
help you with some of that. I have resources on community governance I can share with you.
Great, fantastic. So that's the story of Kailash. So let's move on to our new project, which is Annapurna Eco Village. So let me pull that one up. Here it is. Okay, so here's Annapurna Eco Village. Let's go ahead through this one. Slideshow. Okay, so this was the marketing photo, as I mentioned here, for the Kenneth Allen Apartments. And this is the story of an apartment building whose management kind of went AWOL, and the place seriously deteriorated. It just happened to be next door, and we had some dealings with them. We had a tree that was shared. It was actually on their property leaning over our building, so we had tried to contact them for years to get them to share pruning of the tree. When finally they did get back to us, they said, hey, we're interested in selling. Are you interested? And so we checked it out and found that it would be a great way to increase the number of people who could live in an eco village in Portland. So let's go through the story of Annapurna. So Annapurna is this 3-acre property with 5 buildings. Here you can see north. This is the pool area here. Surrounding the pool are northwest, east, and south buildings. And then there's this one that's sort of off to the left side, upper left. So you can see the boundaries here. So it consists of 53 apartments in 5 buildings built in 1971. There was a remodeling of this little area right here in 76 to add 1 unit and some garage for on-site maintenance. But you can see the breakdown is quite different from Kailash. We have about equal numbers of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. In fact, 2 bedrooms, there's more 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms than 1 bedrooms. But it's a very nice complex. It was a very well-designed complex. Each unit has a balcony that overlooks the pool area or these gardens right here. Each building has its own laundry, plenty of parking, way more probably than is actually needed. Management has some nice space for maintenance of the property. There are actually 14 separate addresses here.
Yeah.
So here's a comparison of the amenities of Kailash and Annapurna. So you can see Kailash was built in 59 and the house next door 26, Annapurna 71 and 77. So a little bit more recent construction. The building space is substantially different. Kailash has about 18,000 square foot versus 50,000 for Annapurna. The lot size, you kind of get the sense that Kailash is about half the size of Annapurna in terms of area and potential residents, et cetera. 34 units versus 53, many 3-bedroom and 2-bedroom units that we don't have a lot of at Kailash, and which has limited our participation by families here.
Right.
Lots of cars parking space here, no bike parking. So we have 96 spots for bike parking at Kailash for 55 residents. Annapurna has no bike parking. And there's no guest room at Annapurna either. This building, Kailash was actually built with a guest room from the very beginning. They actually called it a bar. It was kind of a party room, but we've turned it into a more of a well-used community space. So when we started the project in February 2023, it was in pretty poor shape. Of the 53 units, only 17 were occupied by legitimate contracts. 30 units had squatters in them.
Oh, wow.
As I mentioned, the management had pretty much gone missing. They weren't collecting rents. The property owner has several other properties that are well managed, so I don't know why they kind of let this place go to pot. Anyway, it was in pretty poor shape. You'll see some of the photos here, but what we did is when we took over management, before the sale even closed, they allowed us to take over management and started getting it working again. We were able to convince most of the occupants that were there to sign up for a contract. So we didn't have to evict anybody. Not everybody that was living there was suitable to stay. So we did give a cash for keys for, I think, 3 residents it was. But we essentially had almost 0 legal fees. So that was quite a demonstration of our property manager's ability to work with folks without creating kind of a antagonistic feeling between the parties.
Right.
And so anyway, we ended up doing a lot of remodeling because many of the units were not habitable. So yeah, when we started, the project was grass and ornamentals. There were no food-bearing plants on the property. And the property had a big infestation of these invasive, like blackberries, wild clematis, English ivy, and holly, and seedling cherry trees. And they had a landscape crew come through and mow the grass periodically and spray pesticide and blow the leaves around. There was all kinds of chaos going on. I mean, this was a really, believe it or not, this was a typical unit. If you don't have a contract, you really don't care much about keeping your place looking nice. It was like people were living there on borrowed time and figuring, well, we're not going to be here that long, so we're just going to, do the minimum and reduce our expenses to the minimum too. So it was a kind of a big disaster, and a lot of the squatters weren't paying their electrical bills, so The power was turned off. Well, the solution to that is to steal your neighbor's meter that still was authorized. So there were all kinds of shenanigans going on like that. They were going to neighboring properties too and stealing meters. And the power company didn't know the difference. The power would shut off momentarily and then it would come back on in a different location. The power company didn't know where the meter was, so it ended to work, believe it or not. There was no on-site recycling. Even garbage service had stopped, and that was hence the accumulation of garbage on the grounds. A lot of criminal behavior, like vehicle theft. The police department would show, every time they would show up, which was several times a week, they would expect to find several vehicles, stolen vehicles in the parking lot, so they brought a tow truck to tow them. There was a severe rodent infestation, animal abuse, and pit bulls attacking not only residents, but other pets too. There was an overdose death during the closing period. So what was the plan? The first projects we planned was sign up the people, get legitimate contracts for everybody who wanted to stay. The vacant units needed extensive remodeling. So we took out a $1 million loan to perform remodeling. We wanted to achieve full occupancy. I mean, that's the only way you're going to have a sustainable business is if you have enough income to pay your expenses. We wanted to start community development. So we initiated a listserv and educational outreach. We want to convert the gardens to grass and ornamentals to more edible landscapes, clean up the community, install free Wi-Fi internet. We put new fences and gates in where they were lacking because there was a lot of concern about security, and the property is such a dilapidated property. So other projects we were thinking about is, what do we do for gardening? So here was a space that was just mowed, and this was a steeper area here that wasn't even maintained. So we turned this into first a pumpkin patch and squash patch. And now our group gardens program has overtaken this, and we've installed composting here. So this has been quite a success there. There's a program in Oregon that encourages the installation of electric vehicle chargers. So we took advantage of that program, and now we have 6 electric vehicle chargers on site. We now have a community kitchen composting on site. Eventually, we plan to install photovoltaics and generate power on site, but that hasn't occurred yet. What do you do with an old swimming pool that hasn't been used for several years? Well, you can decommission it. I mean, one option is to get it going again, but the insurance companies don't like to see that. So we're probably going to decommission it and use it as rainwater storage space or some other purpose. We want to eventually depave a lot of the grounds, a lot of the parking area, and turn it into edible landscape. So here's an update in spring 2024. This was about a year ago. So the remodeling was all complete, including we replaced all of the old single pane windows with triple pane. We've installed gates at each entrance and fenced the areas that needed fencing. By March of 2024, which was about a year after we took over management, we had achieved full occupancy. We now have a Google group that's active, and people get Google messages every day with community news. We have free Wi-Fi in all of the units. The electric charging stations are operational, and we're now starting to turn the edible landscapes into the ornamental landscapes into edible landscapes. Also, we're doing recycling now for the first time. So what's Annapurna going to look like in a few years? So we've got these entries. We plan to put an arch demarcating each entrance, just like at Kailash. We'll depave some of the parking spaces that we don't need, which I imagine could be at least half the parking. All of the cultivable areas can be landscaped with edible landscapes or native plants all over the property. We're about a third of the way to there. We've got the chargers here. This is the gate to Kailash. So the residents here are welcome to use our amenities here. So we have our existing individual plot program that we still haven't set up something like that here. Our biggest project, though, is to create a community center in the center of the property here. This is where the pool is right here. We're going to create a community greenhouse with a kitchen, guest quarters, secure bike storage, and the greenhouse will have a PV array to generate enough solar to provide power for all of the community areas here. So that's kind of what our vision is. This is what will look like in a few years. And based on what we've done at Kailash, this seems eminently achievable. So that's the end of this presentation. Let's talk about some of the things you wanted to explore.
Well, so I can see places for Miyawaki Forest there too, so we can talk about that later. But how do the neighbors, you talked a little bit about your Kailash neighbors and some of the issues there. It doesn't look like you have a lot of neighbors for Annapurna. It looks pretty much in, I don't know, maybe light industrial or something.
No, this is all a residential area here. The neighbors are actually delighted at the change in what used to be a nexus of crime in the neighborhood with all the stolen vehicles and all into a kind of a model property. So this is our interface with the neighborhood, primarily on Southeast Cora Drive here. So this is our front. We already have berries planted in this area, and this weekend we're planting grapes all along the front here. So this is all going to be a beautiful garden, which will be the first thing people see when they show up. So the neighborhood is absolutely delighted at what's transpired since we took over management. You can imagine why.
Oh yeah. So when do you think you'll be have met your investment goals money-wise and have broken even?
Well, probably we're close to that now since we're full occupancy, but many of the units that had residents living in them, they need upgrades. So as people move out, there's a normal transition, people move on. As those units are vacated and we have to find new people, we're often spending a fair amount of money remodeling those. But I'd say we're fairly close now to being cash flow neutral. And we'll probably be turning the corner soon where we'll actually have a little bit of money to start doing some projects. This community greenhouse here in the center, that's going to probably be a $500,000 project. We don't have the money for that right now. So we're looking for lenders who might be interested in supporting a project like that. But that'll be a huge benefit for the community because we'll finally have a year-round community space and guest quarters that are not existing at this point. We also need to do bike parking also.
Okay. I don't see any solar there.
The community greenhouse is going to have a PV array, a large PV array that will probably generate all the power we need for the common spaces, the laundries, the EV chargers, the perimeter lighting and that sort of thing, the gates and so forth.
Okay, so you don't feel the need to put solar panels on the roofs here?
At this point, we don't have the money in any case, even though we would like to do that. The community greenhouse is actually going to be it's going to be a gigantic solar array that we're anticipating for that. So that's going to probably generate surplus power initially.
So what have you learned over time that's made this easier?
Well, how to deal with large properties. Prior to Kailash, my wife and I had never had any experience managing a large number of residents. And that brings its own concerns and challenges compared with single family homes. So there's the idea of how do you develop a community in an innovative and sustainable way. And of course, it's much, much easier in a multifamily property compared to a single family property. Multifamily is perfect for economizing on energy use, uh, amenity sharing, and so forth, that you don't have those opportunities in single family dwellings usually.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Davis Homes, Village Homes in Davis, California?
I've heard about that, but I've never visited. And I understand it was a very innovative design back in the 70s, wasn't it? I think really they used a large amount. Yeah, yes, solar power and lots of
60 acres.
Wow, that it sounds like a great project.
Yeah, and it is. It's a poster child. We talk about it a lot. We've got all sorts of stuff on our website for it. But what's interesting to me about what you do is that you take a built environment and are changing it. And I like what you're doing at Kailash in terms of channeling the water and that sort of thing, because that's much harder in a built environment. One of the things that made Village Home work was it was a wheat field to start with, and it was flat. So they actually built the thing to do water. So they designed that land to make sure that they hold water. So when they had 5 inches of rain, it didn't flood.
Right. That's one of their biggest successes, I think, is how they've remodeled this and created swales to infiltrate all the water that falls.
Well, it was designed that way, and you don't have that option. You have to kind of jerry-rig things, but you've done really well. And I think that's an incredible lesson to people, because even though what we get may not be what we would have started with if we had our druthers, if we actually built it, we can put it where it should be in a lot of ways. So you've just done, I think, a remarkable job of making that happen.
We thank you for your kind words. Yeah, I would point out at Kailash, the units face away from each other. And one of the design paradigms in co-housing is to have the units face each other. That creates community. So we've always fancied, how could we remedy that situation? We have some great ideas, but they're just too expensive to implement. Yeah, you're kind of stuck with what you have when you're remodeling an older property. And you can do a lot. You may not achieve everything that you would have achieved if you had started from scratch and designed with better knowledge of how communities should be ideally designed, but you can do great things with old properties. I think that's one of the lessons that we need to learn.
Absolutely, because we got a lot of them.
Yeah, we certainly do.
We might as well use what we have.
Yes.
Yeah. What would you share with somebody who wanted to start this? What would be your advice?
Well, I think when talking about projects in general, what we've got to do is roll up our sleeves and get to work. You're going to make mistakes. That's inevitable. But get out there and start doing things. A lot of people just sit in their armchair dreaming with pipe in hand. And that's what pipe dreaming is. And they don't get anywhere. I mean, they fancy all of these things that might be, but nothing ever happens. So my main point for anybody is to start a project, see it through. You'll learn a lot of lessons, and then go on to the next project. And you start small. So the first property my wife and I bought was a single family home. That's all we could afford at the time. And we remodeled a fixer-upper, and it gave us some funds to go on to the next project. So we weren't able to do this. I mean, I wasn't born into wealth. We sort of built our way from our bootstraps. You do a small project, and then you get bigger and bigger until you can do a project like this. And this project probably for some people is a small project. So it depends on, who you are and where you're at. For this was an appropriate size project. We tried it and it worked out. And believe me, we had a lot of missteps along the way. I mean, that's inevitable. But when you have a misstep, you learn the lessons and you move on.
So what about maintenance? Are you doing it all by yourself? Do you hire people? Do the residents help? How does that work?
We have a full-time maintenance guy who was sufficient for Kailash. So he's working on both properties now. He's the one that is charged with the more complicated maintenance. And then we hire crews from outside. We have a crew that has done most of the remodeling. When we painted one of the first projects we did was to paint all the buildings. We hired a crew for that. I mean, obviously we don't have the labor to do that. That took like 4 months to paint all the buildings. And the same with the windows. We had a company install all the windows. But we did most of the remodeling ourselves. We served as general contractors and hired firms that could help us out. But we do have our own maintenance staff. That's essential.
I was wondering, one of the thoughts that crossed my mind, and I'm not sure how many like young people in their teens to maybe 30 you have, but in that age range, it used to be that a lot of people learned how to take care of things from their family home, but now that doesn't happen so much. So you get these people of this age who are thinking about a house, thinking about a family, and they really don't have the skills to take care of it. They've not been taught any of that. So does any of that happen on site?
Well, most of the communal activities are focused on gardening, fruit production, berry production. So most of the skills people learn here are garden related, no doubt.
Okay.
So, you don't learn how to maintain your apartment because we have a maintenance crew that does that.
Okay.
You're going to learn that when you take on your first project where you own your home or your apartment or a condominium or whatever. And that's when you're going to learn those skills. So, I mean, I didn't learn any of that growing up. It's the first time I owned a house that I learned a lot of those skills. And then we subsequently learned year after different properties that we owned. And then we took on this larger project and we realized we needed maintenance employees to do that.
Both your projects are really strongly garden focused, and that's wonderful. I know some of the things that happen in co-housing is if the people who live there have an interest, they might have a shared dark room or a shared automobile repair place or something, or woodworking or something like that. Are those kinds of things that have happened in your?
We have some of our residents who are quite into artistic endeavors, have led projects like one of our residents led this ceramic project where each person got to build a component of this large sculpture. We've done several mosaic projects where a mosaicist expert led everybody to create these huge mosaics. So yeah, we have a lot of sharing of skills like that for sure.
Wonderful. It's just marvelous. I so appreciate your time. I just can't tell. I'm just thrilled with your projects. It's so rare that people do anything for renters. They're kind of like the illegitimate child on the corner there, and they're looked down upon, and people don't understand that they're residents like anybody else, and they can contribute in amazing ways. So you've really kind of turned a model on its head in a very wonderful way.
Absolutely. And in a place where we enjoy our neighbors so much. I mean, it's so wonderful. This is like an Eden that we live in. So every day is a new adventure.
Thank you, Ole, very much for your time. And thank Maitri as well. I'm just
You're very welcome. And thanks for all your kind words.
Oh, you deserve it. It's a fabulous project. So thank you so much. So this is one of several projects or webinars that we're doing that look at community in a slightly different way. So I hope it's been useful, and come on back. Thanks, Ole.